Screamboat is a 2025 American comedy horror film directed by Stephen Lamort. It is a reimagining of Walt Disney and Ub Iwerk's 1928 animated short film, Steamboat Willie. The plot follows a group of New Yorkers terrorized by a monstrous mouse named Steamboat Willie. Plot: the film begins with a pair of ferry workers receiving a call, and Carol believes they shouldn't be working on such junk. However, the most disturbing aspect is that they open a hatch that had been closed for years, so the smell it gives off leads them to believe it's some kind of hidden animal. A creature that had been hidden is released and now stalks them, although the man believes it's just a rat. At that moment, Carol notices the creature moving stealthily and starting to wreak havoc, and she even receives a small caress, so her partner quickly prepares to strike. However, the creature pounces on him and soon eliminates him, while Carol, realizing she's lost her partner, decides to flee. But in fleeing, she ends up entering the mutant's lair, which soon launches itself to finish the job. In the next scene we see a girl, very pretty, by the way, called Selena running to the entrance of the ferry. It was obvious that she was running away. Upon arriving, the guard asks her if she's running away from a stalker. She says they're a group of girls celebrating a birthday. The guard simply replies that the problem is even worse. Meanwhile, a boy named Pete politely asks her to go to the top of the ferry and that the birthday girl and her friends will send them down. Upon arriving, the group of girls are sent down, but one of them asks him about Selena. Pete simply replies that he's sending everyone down. Pete tries to report them, but the radios don't seem to be working properly, as they usually do, so he'll keep an eye out. At the same time, the communications officer informs the ferry captain that the weather isn't very good, so they'll suspend sailings for a couple of hours. However, the captain lets him know he's working overtime and doesn't plan to stay longer than necessary, so he ignores the instructions and ends up starting the ferry and setting off. The birthday girl and her other friends try to continue the party, so some people try to stay away from them. At the same time, we see a paramedic named Amber, who is attentive to the passengers, especially an elderly man named Barry, who constantly travels on the ferry and whom she always tries to look after. Meanwhile, Pete reunites with Selena, and she thanks him for keeping her away from the birthday girl, so the two begin to get to know each other better. Selena tells us she's just arrived in the city. But based on what she's experienced with the people, she doesn't think she'll be staying long, to which Pete tries to convince her it's a good place to live. Someone in disguise isolates himself from all the other passengers and begins using his magic candy, but suddenly senses someone is stalking him. As if that weren't enough, he notices something controlling his mask, which he had left on the floor. He quickly tries to escape, but the creature refuses to let him go and knocks him down. This thing uses its own toys to send him to the afterlife, thus capturing more and more prey. Back with the birthday girl. She tries to get to the bar, but discovers the ferry is so old that it was closed down long ago, though luckily another friend of hers brought a bottle and the party continues between them. Selena realizes the upstairs bathrooms aren't working, so she has to go downstairs, where she discovers one of them is occupied and decides to enter the men's one. At that moment, she runs into Amber, who apologizes for the inconvenience, saying the ferry is very old and will soon be decommissioned. However, what neither of them realizes is that the bathroom was being occupied by the creature, feeding on its prey. Elsewhere, the group of partygoers ask a ferry worker to take photos of them. Each of them gives him their cell phones, as the worker was juggling so many phones. Meanwhile, an officer notices a very peculiar trail, but upon following it, he runs into the creature, and it gets rid of the officer by submerging him in the water next to the ferry's propellers. Selena, who's separated from the group of girls, goes to that same spot and was able to see everything. The creature notices Selena's presence, but doesn't get angry. Instead, it starts flirting with Selena. And wow, this mouse doesn't have bad taste. Selena quickly reports what she saw to the guards, but they saw her with the birthday girls and thought she was just over the limit. Pete tries to defend her, but still doesn't trust her words. Meanwhile, the captain receives a call from the base, in which the communications officer tells him that the area he's passing through is foggy, so she asks him not to stray or he'll end up lost. At this moment, the captain discovers he's not alone, as the mouse pounces on him and wraps a rope around his neck, adding one more to the list of those eliminated.
So he takes the helm of the ferry and deviates to a specific point. As he does this, he imitates another famous mouse driving a ferry and whistling. While Selena tries to warn the others about what she saw, some arrive at the command cabin where they discover what happened to the captain, entering one by one, each uttering the same curse word. They try to report the incident, but the mouse destroys the equipment. One of the subordinates names himself captain and orders everyone to be taken to the lower deck of the ferry. Pete, for his part, states that he doesn't want to be in charge, but doesn't think it's a good idea to gather everyone downstairs, since that's probably what whoever is doing the eliminations wants. Meanwhile, a couple of the birthday girl's friends take some photos for their social media accounts, specifically to get some shorts for YouTube. However, while they were striking their silly poses, it seems the mouse has been watching them. One of them even accidentally took a photo of him, but upon seeing the photo, she only noticed that he needed more makeup instead of noticing a giant mouse. The mouse takes advantage of the opportunity to attack his prey, where he soon uses a freight elevator, which he struggled to turn on at first, but once he was able to turn it on, he launched himself at them, crashing through everything. Meanwhile, the other passengers are taken to the lower level, but when most of them were inside, Selena couldn't get in, nor could Pete, and they realized they were trapped. Panic begins to erupt. But an officer, in an epic speech, cheers them up, extolling the greatness, toughness, and survival of New Yorkers. But the mouse doesn't care, and he takes it upon himself to eliminate the officer first. The mouse finds the situation funny and can't stop laughing, in his typical way. The mouse lets them know he's not done with them yet, grabs a hose, and starts bathing them all. Later, he thought a little electric shock would do them good after the bath, and they all fell. The terrifying mouse celebrates his great triumph. Then the rest try to hide, while the mouse begins to search for them everywhere, where he almost catches a child, but luckily another passenger manages to save him. Meanwhile, another passenger tells an officer that she saw the mouse enter a room. The officer follows her, but there was nothing there. When he turns around, the girl was topless. Then she confesses that she only wanted to speak to her microphone. She kneels down and begins to tune it. The officer wanted to resist because he was on duty, but in the end, they are there to protect and serve. But the mouse was there. At first, he was lurking, but his attention was caught by the way the girl was using the officer's microphone. But he had a busy schedule, so he had to interrupt them and decided to eliminate them before the girl polished the officer's microphone. Yes, sometimes you have to prioritize. But it's clear the humanoid mouse really likes being the hunter. On the other hand, Selena, Pete, Amber, and the birthday girl move on to another place, but the birthday girl strays, a girl with drinks on her, walking in a confined space with a mutant mouse on the loose. It's best to separate from the group without warning anyone. The others finally notice and want to look for her. But when they hear strange noises, they prefer to keep moving. They run into the boy and his savior, who introduces himself as Moses, and they join forces to protect each other. Meanwhile, the new captain tries to repair the radio, but no matter how hard he tries, he doesn't achieve much, and the mouse also appears without the captain noticing. In fact, the captain asks him to give him tools. The mouse initially plays along, but the schedule is very tight, and there are still several passengers who need his attention, the mouses, of course, so he eliminates the second captain. The birthday girl can't believe how badly she's having her birthday. And without realizing it, the Mickey lookalike is closely watching her. At that moment, she sees the photos her friends uploaded. She spots the mouse in the background, although the worst part is that he appears before her and immediately runs away, goes through a door, and closes it. But in those cases, it's best to stay right against the door instead of running away, and that's exactly what he does. The mouse finds some kind of harpoon and throws it at the door to see how strong it was. It turned out to be quite resistant and went through the door, along with the birthday girl. At the same time, the others arrive at the command room, where they discover there is no way to communicate by radio and the ferry seems to have stopped at that moment. They hear a noise in one of the compartments, so they believe it is the monster, but it was Old Man Barry who tells them the story of the ferry. A long time ago, a captain named Walt came across a creature on that ferry. He called it Willie, which was a kind of abandoned experiment, since they tried to create a more cartoonish and pleasant mouse for the shows, although it clearly didn't work. Then Walt gave him his freedom and they became great friends, crossing the seas, but the bad thing is that one day fate was against them and Willie was left alone. Walt succumbed along with the ferry. As time passed, people thought that he had only existed in Walt's mind. Although Barry doesn't really know what this thing is up to. At that moment, they discover that the boy is the mayor's son, so they deduce that they have already sent their best to look for him, so they plan to look for the flares so they can find them faster. It seems that Pete and Selena are beginning to understand each other better, who apparently want to be more than friends, so they wish each other good luck and see each other later. However, when they split into two groups, one goes for the flares and the other to check the engines, the latter runs into Willie, where Moses decides to sacrifice himself so Pete and the boy can escape. On the other hand, Selena and Amber went for the flares, but didn't find them, since Willie had hidden them. Willie finds them, but Amber manages to hit him with something and Willie has to flee. Willie arrives with the others, where Carol tells him that the engines have stopped working and she doesn't know how to fix them. Willie, annoyed, eliminates Carol. One of the passengers takes advantage of the fact that they are distracted to hit Willie, so it seems that they have defeated them, but with this blow they cause an explosion and the ferry begins to sink. Pete and the boy were trapped. While the water rises, the girls try to get them out, but they can't open the hatch, they can only open a small space. Pete says that it is enough and carries the boy so that the girls can help him out. When it was Pete's turn, Willie appears as a shark, swimming unseen on camera, all underwater, but this is enough to prevent Pete from leaving, so Pete is eliminated, before saying goodbye to Selena, while she is left crying. Amber discovers that Willie is still on the lower deck, so she warns the others that they must find a way to leave the ferry before it sinks, or Willie catches them. At that moment, the boy tells them that his mother once told him that if they couldn't defeat something by facing it, then they had the possibility of trying it with love. So this gives Selena an idea. She remembered that Willie flirted with her, and she asked Amber to entertain Willie while she worked with a wardrobe. With her purse and some dresses she found among the luggage, she makes a dress that resembles Willie's partner, Minnie Mouse. Willie goes against Amber. But luckily, Selena arrives in her Minnie Mouse performance and manages to attract him. It seems that she has him right where she wanted him, although her aim betrays her and she fails to hit him. Because of this, Willie confronts her and is about to throw her into the water, but seeing how much she resembles Minnie, he changes his mind and helps her get on the ferry. The mouse gives him a rose to apologize. While Amber manages to distract him, Selena takes the opportunity to stick a pair of scissors in Willie's head. The mouse falls into the sea, and it's all over at last. In the next scene, already during daylight, the mayor is very grateful to them for taking care of his son, while Selena comments that she wants to leave the city. Pete was the only one who had convinced her to stay, and there was no point in staying. Amber confesses that she's not originally from New York, which surprises Selena, so there's a chance she won't leave. If Amber could do it, Selena can get used to it too. In a final scene we see that among the debris of the ferry is Willie, who is recovering, but he was not alone, since Minnie Mouse appears from behind. She was the one who saved him and is ready to take revenge against those who did that to her beloved. Comments. It's very obvious that this movie is a parody of the Mickey Mouse short film, Steamboat. The group of birthday girls are Disney princesses. Cindy is Cinderella, Ariana is Ariel, Jazzy is Jasmine, Belle is Belle, Ilsa is Elsa, and Rory is Aurora. Amber, an emergency medical technician, is named after Princess Amber from Sophia the First. Pete is in honor of the antagonist of the original short film, Peg-Leg Pete, and Aubrey, after Audrey Rose, the daughter of Princess Aurora and Prince Philip in Sleeping Beauty. In my opinion, considering its genre, it's a good film, it's entertaining, and I thought the protagonist was very pretty. Apparently, it has a good online following, and critics have been kind. Of course, you have to keep in mind what kind of genre it is, a parody, so let's not expect excellent acting or a believable plot. That's all from me, goodbye.